Good morning. How are you? All right? Nice to see you, and thank you so much for those of you that have come back to have another dose of New Year sales, because we've got to kick the year off the right way. We want to make money. Hands up all of those people who like making money. Good stuff. That's what we want to hear. That's what we want to see. How many of you, just out of interest, so far in the first week of this year have actually made sales and new business already? Get in. Come on. That's what we love. Well done. For the rest of you who haven't quite done it, when it happens, it's a great feeling, but you need to kick that year off by getting that momentum going and getting that business in, because the lethargy of Christmas and all that festivity, glitter and tinsel, we need to kind of leave behind us now and move into an arena where we're starting to think about our businesses again. That's really important. So today, we're doing a slightly different sales approach. We're doing sales on paper, which is basically writing effective sales proposals. Do you all get involved with writing sales proposals? Do you all do them? Do you use the traditional method where you are writing them on screen? Are you using pen and paper and transferring? Anyone using Better Proposals, the online version? What are you doing?
On screen.
On screen? Yeah? Start with a Word document, pile it in. Do any of you send proposals that look like a presentation where it's made up of slides or a deck? Do any of you do that? Yeah? Sometimes we do different ways, and there are lots of different ways of putting sales proposals together, and I'm not going to give you a one-size-fits-all approach, because there isn't, because all of our clients are different and they require a different approach. So you've got to work out what fits, but I'm going to give you the key ingredients that will help you, and then you can put them into some sort of order. All right? So before we start, I always bring along additional reading that you need to read, because you shouldn't just take one person's word for anything with any form of training or selling or anything like that, because there's so much good stuff out there. So I brought a number of books with me that I strongly recommend you pick up. You can buy most of them on Amazon for a penny. So, and you should always buy them secondhand. I always say buy them secondhand, especially if it says contains writing or highlighting in the margin, because that means everyone else has read through the padding and highlighted the good stuff, so you can get to the great stuff before reading through all the dross. So, not that I'm saying there's all dross in their books. God, they're going to get all these emails, aren't they now? So, well, on the writing side of things, Joe Vitale created this book called Hypnotic Writing. He believes that if you can get somebody to read the first 50 words, they will read the next 500. And it's about using the right language that gets people involved and hypnotically connected to what you're writing. There is some cracking stuff in this book, well worth your money. There is a companion book to this called Buying Trances as well. There's a theme with hypnotherapy that's in there. It's some cracking stuff, really, really good. Second one, for any of you that have done any work around NLP, you may like this book here by Shelley Rose Charvet called Words That Change Minds. This particular book focuses on behavior types. So it says that some people you write to, they will have a towards, goal-orientated approach, or an away from, kind of focusing on things you should avoid and pitfalls approach. And you can tailor your writing to that. So this is a great book if you like that kind of approach. And whilst we're talking about behaviors and writing to different types of people, some of you may be members of Alison Edgar's Entrepreneurs Clan. And Alison is an amazing sales trainer. We call each other sales brother and sister because we are salespeople through and through. And Alison's book came out last year, and it's a really cracking read, but she's got a specific colour way of dealing with particular clients, so seeing them as different colours and the behaviours associated. This is a really great read. It's great if you're not one of those people that likes selling too much and needs to build confidence. Alison is great at getting your confidence up. So this is a really good book to get hold of too. I'm not going to say to you that I spend a lot of time watching reality television, but I do love Million Dollar Listing. I am kind of America's Million Dollar Listing. I absolutely love it, especially the New York one, because the New York one with those real estate salespeople are terrific. Ryan Serhant, who is one of the stars of that, also has his own show called Sell It Like Serhant and has just brought this book out. I don't tend to advocate the celebrity books, but the stuff that's in here is really, really good, and it's only just come out just before Christmas. I've read this twice now, and there's some really key stuff that I'm starting to filter into the way that I sell, and it really works. So this is a great book to get hold of. It's really lean as well. It gets to the point really quickly, so it's a great book. And I suppose Lastly, we can't go with writing any form of sales or sales proposals or things like that without mentioning Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek is very famous for his book, Find Your Why. And this book is the companion that goes to it. It's the field book. And when you're writing sales proposals, we often concentrate on putting across what we're going to deliver or how we're going to do it. Simon Sinek says you should start the other way, and you should start with why you're doing something, then focus on how you do it, and the what will just tally on. So therefore, if you can get people to buy into the why, people are more likely to follow. And in management, let's get people into buying into the why we're doing it. So there's great applications, but in sales, this is absolutely terrific. And it's a very, very practical book that's out there, and it's the companion. Have a little look while you're here, pick them up, see what you think, but there's some great stuff. So moving forward then, we're going to look at writing sales proposals. And how many of you still receive junk mail through your letterbox? Still get junk mail through? Funnily enough, junk mail that you're getting are actually sales proposals, because all of those companies, whether they're charities or credit card companies, are trying to get you to buy their products. And what they're doing is they're putting something together as a sales proposal in the form of a sales letter to get you to sign up. They have closing mechanisms that are on there as well, such as places where you're already pre-approved for a card or a direct debit mandate. You might want to be thinking about the closing mechanisms you can put into your sales proposals as well that accelerate the buying process. I'll just leave that there for you. But when we think about junk mail, the difference between a sales proposal and junk mail is that junk mail is not requested. A sales proposal is. So therefore, you better make sure that what you're putting into your sales proposal doesn't read like junk mail so that they just throw it away and discard you, especially if your business is involved in a tender process where your proposal is being put against others and you are being compared and contrasted. It's really got to stand out. So what we do is we say there are 3 key things we look at within a sales proposal that's overarching. First and foremost, your sales proposal has to resonate with that client. It's got to resonate, it's got to vibrate with them, it's got to really connect with them. So you've got to get your sales proposal to contain information that people like to hear about. First and foremost, their name. They love to hear their name. So make it connect. Secondly, not only resonation, we want differentiation. That means that if you get it right, what you will receive is the response from the client that says, you are my first and my only choice. You are the person I want to do business with. That's what differentiation does. The third thing is substantiation. Substantiation is proof, evidence, backup. That says then the customer will say, I believe you and I believe in you. So you get those 3 right and you put that in a sales proposal, sales presentation, sales meeting, you're likely to get more conversion. Does that all make sense? Yeah? Straightforward. So let's have a look and see where we're going. Today, the overarching message is about keeping it nice and simple. And I'm going to give you lots of stuff just to make it nice and easy and simple for you. So we're going to work it through that way. Feel free to chip in whenever you want. We're going to look at why we create sales proposals. What's the point of them? We're going to look at the key ingredients of a sales proposal, the things that make it up. We're going to look at how the structure should look. And this is very fluid. You can make it however you want. I tend to have a set of ingredients that I use and then I mix and match them around, but the overall structure is kind of there. Then what we do once we've written it and sending the proposal to the client, and then how to follow up on the proposal. Okay, so we're going to look at all that within the next kind of 45 minutes. As a result of this presentation for you today, at 9 o'clock this morning, there will be a blog that will have all of these notes that will be launched from my website this morning onto all the social media channels for you to pick up. You can download, and if you want to, you can do whatever you want with the notes. I'm not precious about it, it's fine. So you can do all of that. So that blog is going up, which will have lots of this on here. It is being filmed this morning, so you'll have that as well. But also, if you want any specific help with any of your proposals, feel free to just get in touch. And even if you just want me to sense check something you're putting out, I'm really happy to do it for you. It's not something that I'm going to charge you for. It's just something that some people need a little bit more help afterwards, or they just want to ask a question. And that's absolutely fine. My business cards are around, so you can get in touch. So first and foremost, Why do we put sales proposals together? What's the actual point of doing it? You tell me what the number one reason is as to why we put sales proposals together. Why do we do it? To win a sale. Yeah, to win a sale. That's ultimately why we're doing it. And the outcome is going to be money. Because if you, as Alison Edgar says, if you don't make any sales, you don't have any business. If you haven't got any money, you haven't got any business. And then you lose your business. So it's all about the money. You have to make money to run your business. So we create sales proposals with a view to winning the sale and making more money. The other reasons that we do it is that traditionally, sales proposals usually follow a telephone call or a meeting with a client. They will usually say, could you send me some information or send me a proposal as to how you can help? So that's usually the logical order of getting a sales proposal. If you blindly send a sales proposal to a client without having spoken to them first or that sales proposal being requested, you are basically spamming them or sending them junk mail. And guess what they're going to do with your email? Yeah, straight away, they're just going to delete it in the same way as you would delete anyone's unsolicited mail. So think about the quality as to what you're sending and the order that it usually goes in. So it follows a sales call. Secondly, it can be part of a tender process. You could be asked to send a proposal, and if a tender process is involved, it could involve you actually following up with a presentation as well. So it could be that. If you know you're part of a tender process, and you know that's happening, there is nothing wrong with asking the client, who else are you currently seeing? Because it's really good to know who you're up against. What is it they say? Keep your friends close and your... Absolutely, keep your enemies closer. We need to do that, so know who you're up against. You know, it's really important to know your competition out there. If any of you have read The Art of War by Sun Tzu, that book is all about military strategy, and in a commercial environment, it is war. You've got to win that business without a doubt, and you've got to crush the competition. So therefore, if you're part of a tender process, that battle has commenced, and you've got to make that happen. It tends to keep things moving. A sales proposal is a really good way of keeping the lubrication of the sale going. It's a nice message from the client that they're still interested in you, and it allows you to put mechanics within the proposal that keep that process going as well, and I'll show you some of those a bit later. It gives the client a little bit of time to think. It gives the client some breathing room from the initial sales meeting. Some clients are very, very savvy on salespeople. They know how salespeople work. And as such, they don't want to be rushed. They like to take their time. They like to think about things, mull it over a little bit. And by asking for a sales proposal, what it does to them is it slows the process down for them, makes it more manageable, and it gives them a little bit of breathing time. Just don't give them too much oxygen to manage on their own with, because you don't want them breathing on their own for too long. You want them to be dependent on you and to remember you. So make sure you keep that memorable aspect there and stay in touch. It does demonstrate, by putting a sales proposal together, that you have listened to their initial needs. And by putting it down in writing, you're making a commitment to them as well, and demonstrating that not only have you listened, but you understand what they have said, and also, by reiterating that, you are acting in a consistent way. And because consistency is linked to familiarity, that makes people feel very comfortable. So by making people feel comfortable, they connect with you. They like that. So therefore, by creating a sales proposal, it helps make that happen. A sales proposal is you on paper or you on screen. So it's really important that you don't make your sales proposal's tone of voice sound like a machine. Make sure it sounds like you. Make sure it has your own voice. Don't use high-register, willy-waving language that makes you sound clever and over-intelligent. Speak to the client in the way you would just speak to a human being. Just be authentic. Just be yourself. There's nothing, you don't want to sound like something different, because they'll read that and they'll go, that doesn't sound like the person I dealt with. That just sounds different. And different isn't consistent. So make sure that your sales proposal represents you and has your voice. When we think about moving it forward, when we look at writing a sales proposal, you notice here that we're sat here looking at, a laptop, and a lot of people start writing a sales proposal by literally right, I've got a laptop, I've got a Word document in front of me, I'm going to start pouring information down into it. And in a funny kind of way, that's an inappropriate way to start a sales proposal. You should really start getting all of your bits and pieces together, and we should be focusing on the ingredients of what you need within that proposal. So if we step out of this a little bit and we think about making a cake, a lovely, delicious cake, you want to make sure that the ingredients that you're making in your cake are good quality, because if you put good quality into it, you're going to get something better. If you're going to put in really rubbish quality ingredients, you're not going to have a very nice cake. If we look at the ingredients, in every cake, to make a cake, just like a sales proposal, you have key ingredients. Within a cake, you have flour. Flour gives a cake substance. It gives it substance, it gives it volume. What you need to be doing is to think about all the pieces of information that you need to include in your sales proposal that give it volume. What are the things you want to include? Look at all the content, lay it all out, and then think, right, I need to get that in. Then prioritize it, look at it and think, right, what's the essential stuff? What's the next best thing? And what's the nice to have if I could put it in? And then you start to edit it. What is it Coco Chanel once said? She said, once you put an outfit together and you think you're perfectly dressed, take one thing off and then you've got it right. Because otherwise you don't want to overdress it or over-accessorize it. So therefore, with your sales proposal, look at all the information and ingredients you've got, take a couple of things away because they might be superfluous. So the flour is the substance. The butter is the enricher within a cake. It enriches it. It gives it richness and makes it sound really good and really delicious. And you need to be thinking about what represents the butter in your sales proposal. What are the things that you can put in that make it sound utterly delicious and totally irresistible? Are you just going to use butter? Are you going to use lard? What are the fats that you're going to use that make your particular proposal even more delicious? And include those on your table of ingredients as well. Eggs are the structure. The eggs bind a cake together. You need to have a structure that you can hang all of that fantastic content on. And if you have that structure, then it will bind everything together and bring it together in a logical way, and it will also make it rise. Nice. And then lastly, in a cake, sugar. We need sugar because that sweetens things. It sweetens the deal and it adds more flavor. Ask yourself, what things am I going to put into my cake in terms of sugar that make it sweet and irresistible to the client? What are those added value things? And if you were to then add any flavors like chocolate or coconut to your cake, that's the tailoring that you're giving to make it specific to that individual particular client. So when we take the analogy of the cake and we look at the ingredients that go into your proposal, you definitely want to have a bit on client information pretty much at the start of your sales proposal. This is the stuff that surrounds the goals of the client, the problems of the client, their issues and their needs. It's a reiteration of all those things you found out in that particular meeting. So the more you can find out about the client, the better, and the more you can then reiterate to show you have listened is a really good thing. And that's the first thing and first ingredient we have to put in. Secondly, we have to think about your solution. Your solution is what you can do and how you do it. What is it that you're currently doing? How can you solve that problem? And whenever you mention what you offer, you have to link it back to what you said earlier in the proposal about that client's problem. So you're joining the two up. Does that make sense? It's a bit like when we talk about people who sell advertising. People who sell advertising in magazines often talk about the readers of their magazines. And they say, we've got this many readers. We do this with our readers. But the people who are buying advertising, they don't see their customers as readers. They call them customers. So when people sell advertising, we train them to say, so the readers of our magazines, who are your customers, will therefore be doing this. We join the dots between those labels and we make that more meaningful. And that seems to work with clients. So make sure that you're saying what you can do, how you can do it, and linking it back to the client's needs, problems, or issues. You then need to be thinking about why they should use you. In some cases, you see people put in proposals a biog of themselves, a little bio, just to do that. It's great to do it, but try not to make it one of those things that says, you know, Jane lives in this part of the country, she's got her 2 dogs, and she's very happy, and she's been running her business for a few years. Yeah, that's all very nice, but really no one really cares. No one cares. What you want to do is to make sure that what you're putting in is the achievements and the people who you have worked with that are like this client or industries that you've worked in. So what that does is it gives that substantiation. If you want any of the anecdotal stuff, you'll tell them that when you do the nicey stuff when you meet them. You'd have done all that. So you might want to put that why you're doing it or why you should be chosen in there, and that's got your differentiator, your substantiator, and a little bit of value as well that you're going to add in. So put that in. The cost and investment is obviously a thing that you have to put in. Don't be frightened of using language that really brings down to a grassroots level what you're talking about. Don't be frightened of saying, or even putting a line inside your proposal that says, so how much will it cost? Or how much money will this cost you? Don't be frightened of doing that. It's quite refreshing, because when you tackle a problem head on, or you tackle an issue head on, people feel that you're giving more of a human touch. So within proposals that I put in, I will put in there things like, these are the costs. What follows are the investment costs that you're going to need to put in. Try not to use too much big language, unless, of course, it's appropriate for the client. But try and keep it at that low register area. When you're putting prices in, make sure that you're not quoting for one thing at a time. Quote in packages. And make sure that the quotes that you put together involve package number 1. We can do it this way for you, or we could do it that way for you, or we could do it this way for you. Put a maximum of 3 in, and you may find the client says, I love a little bit of number 1, I love a little bit of number 2, and I really like that little bit of number 3. So could we make a little package number 4 just for me? And of course the answer is yes. And the reason why is because customers love choice. If a customer loves choice and they are free to make that choice for themselves, they feel that they are fully in control of the sale and they're not feeling manipulated. So feel free to give people lots of packages that you put in, not too much that you dazzle them, maximum 3 packages with your costs and prices, and include any elements of time as well. So when it is going to start. Manage clients' expectations as well. If, like me, you've got a long lead time on bookings, I am full until May at the moment and booking into May. So when clients contact me about training and they think they can do something in 3 weeks, we can't do that for them. There's no way I can do it because I'm already full. So what I tend to do is have to manage their expectations, and in a sales proposal, we talk about the time scales that they're going to have. I put things into my proposals and say, these are the dates that I've currently got available and open right now. I won't be holding them for you because I don't want to put you under any pressure. However, I will say to you that these particular dates do book up very quickly, hence why I have a long lead time. And what that does is it puts a bit of an accelerant into the client's mind that they need to make a decision quickly. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not hard sell. It's actually selling through a form of influence called scarcity. And it's very, very powerful. Very powerful. We want to put some extra details on your particular proposal as well. Some of the things you might want to include is a cover page. Stick a cover page on there. That's really, really important. Nice cover page on top of it, and make sure that that contains your logo. What I'm about to tell you, you may disagree with. For years and years and years, I was always taught that you should put the client's logo and your logo onto a proposal. Stop doing that. It looks false. It's false flattery. People know who their business is. They want to know who you are. They have asked for you to pitch. And what you have to do is you've got to differentiate yourself and keep your name in that proposal as well. So on every page, there should be your company logo. That should appear somewhere. Yeah? You need to have that. That needs to be on the front. But don't be frightened, however, to mention the company name in the text or the person that you're actually writing the proposal to. So on the cover page of the proposal would say, for example, proposal to Lisa Austin at Teach It for the provision of sales objection training. So therefore, you're addressing it to the person at the business and what it's covering. Yeah? So you make it nice and clean that way and make sure your logo is there. Make sure as well that your proposal contains page numbers. Very, very important. It makes that particular proposal look really polished if you've got that. And if it's big, if what you do is quite complex and it requires a lot of information, then make sure that what you're doing as well is putting a contents page in there so you can direct people to certain bits. One of the other reasons why I say we put a contents page in is if you go into a tender process where you might be up against a panel of people, you might have one person from one department, another from finance and another from another one. What you can do is you could then get them to be directed to their particular relevant section that helps them. And sometimes if you're putting something together that's really big, it's a huge, huge thing, you might want to put an executive summary on as well. You can do that, but don't over-egg it too much. And we're back to cake. Now, next one you need to include is testimonials. Make sure that in your proposal you have got a testimonial in there that says just how good you are, because that's another rule of influence, which is social proof. That's basically saying, don't take my word for it that I'm good. This is what my clients have said about me. You can get those testimonials from places like LinkedIn. You can get them written up as a recommendation. You can then farm them onto your website. Then they can actually appear as a sign-off on your email and then be put into your proposals. So that you've got, I suppose that's like the provenance of where your recommendation or testimonial has come from. You should actively seek out testimonials. And for those of you that have attended any of these sessions before, you know I bang on about it all the time because they are a currency to salespeople. It's very, very good that you do it. So you include a testimonial and a quote within there. Make sure as well that you put a sell-by date on your proposal. So first and foremost, when you write it in Word, first thing you do, go to header and footer, insert a footer. Proposal created for this person at this company by this person on this date. So make sure that you have that written down in a footer and it acts like a watermark on the bottom. Then make sure that in that proposal at the end, you put a statement that says prices quoted for this particular piece of work are valid until, let's say, December 2019. What that does is it allows the client, if things slow down or they come to a halt and then they'll revisit it, it allows them to feel confident that those prices are still valid. But the good stuff for you is that it allows you not to be held to ransom by clients in a couple of years' time coming back to you saying, I've got a proposal you wrote to me and we'd love to go ahead now and the prices you quoted are perfect within our budget. It's like, well, sorry about that, my prices have now gone up. And it stops you having to go into that awkward area because you're putting that caveat in there saying that that price is now valid until that date. So we put a sell-by date in there as well. We also put into there as well the date that you are going to get in contact with them. So this is the next step. So as on receipt of this particular proposal, I will be in touch with you within the next 14 days. Yeah? And you just put that in there. And what that does is it manages the expectation of the client so that they know that you haven't just sent them a piece of information and you're just going to leave it. It means they know you're going to stay in touch and follow up. So you put those extra little details in and it makes a nice bit of difference. So then what we're going to do is we try to put it into some form of structure for you. Put it into a structure. And what we do is we think about your structure and hanging all that great information in there. Now, I'm going to repeat myself at this stage because I genuinely believe that you have to keep branding yourself. Grant Cardone, who's one of the best American sales trainers that's out there and businessman, he's absolutely amazing. He was in the UK recently doing a kind of business tour and he was seen speaking and being interviewed by a guy called Mark Wright, who was an apprentice contestant winner. He's one of the, he's got Climb Online, and he's one of the most successful of the apprentice winners. And he interviewed Grant Cardone. And Grant said to him, people do not buy the best products. They buy the best known products. And what he then did was he kind of had a bit of a dryness in his throat, and he reached down and he picked up a cup of coffee from Starbucks, took a sip, looked at the cup and went, see, not necessarily the best, but it's the best known. But if you are the type of person who has the best and the best known, well, that's fantastic. That's great. But make sure you keep putting your name out there. Make sure you keep that presence on social, but also all the way throughout your proposal. You're putting information in there that relates to you, your website, your business. Make sure you're putting that out there. Keep yourself well known. So within the structure then, we want to kind of break it into two areas. So we've got our contents page at the beginning, and the contents page, funnily enough, is the thing you write last, obviously. So you write that last. Then what we do is, first thing that's in there is an introduction and a recap of the client's needs. That goes right at the front. And then what we do is we put a statement as to why we are doing this. I mentioned to you earlier that Simon Sinek talks about finding your why. You might want to put a statement in that just says, and why are we actually doing this? Why has Connection Businesses contacted Serial Trainer 7 for training? Why have we done this? And that's where you would put in there, this particular business wants to maintain its market leading position. They want to make sure their staff are well trained. And in order to do this, they are looking to upskill within sales provision and sales skills. So you might want to put a statement in there that links with why. I'm not going to go into the why too much, but definitely you want to read and find out all the stuff you can on the Find Your Why, because it really makes a difference. And what it also does is it's a way of getting the client to read about themselves.
Sorry,
and they love that.
Why they are doing it, or why we are?
Why we're talking in the first place. Why are we doing this in the first place? Yeah? And that's really important. And you can link it to their strategy, their goal, whichever you want. But it just gives them the rationale behind it, the thinking, the belief behind it. You then want to include why use you, which I mentioned earlier. You want that statement that says, why are we going to use you? You want to use that next. And then what you're going to do is move into the area of your solution, and you put that in there. And then you want a section on logistics. Logistics, really important. It's great to turn around and tell me that you can do this for me and you can help me, but how is it going to work? How does that work? Do I just ring you and book you for a date? Do you come out and install the software for me and then we do it? Do I get any training with what you're doing? Do I need you to provide you with assets if you're going to redesign my website? How does it work? What are the logistics and the timing? So don't be frightened to put that, how is it going to work? I suppose in a recipe we call it the method, don't we? That's the logistics. So we want to make sure that we put that in there too. You want to put that section on cost and investment as well. You want that nice section that's there. Don't think you have to make that war and peace. Just make sure it's straight to the point with lots of packages that are there. And then you want to put in that vital testimonial, and you want to put in the follow-up as well. Don't be frightened whilst you're doing this as well of using things like headings, but put them in different colours. If you've got a corporate colour, then use your corporate colour. My corporate colour is turquoise, and I like that kind of colour, so everything that I have, my font is the same colour, and I tend to use that so it's present, it's part of your brand. So don't feel you have to stick with boring black. Use whatever you want, but make sure you're using something that brings it to life. Don't go mad with crazy fonts and emboldening and all that type of stuff. You know, you don't want to do that, but just make sure it's clean and it looks on brand. So when you have your structure, this is kind of the loose structure that we have. However, you're going to have clients that will want different emphasis on different things. And so therefore, it may be that you need to mix that up. You might need to expand it. And that's why there isn't a kind of one size fits all for sales proposals. There's lots of different ways of doing it. You have to make it your own. So that's why I say to you need to read around the subject a little bit. When you're thinking about your cost, think about things in terms of value as well. Back to our friend Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone said no one spends $200,000 on something thinking that it's worth £200,000. They don't. They only spend 200 grand when they believe they're getting something of value in excess of what they are spending. And this links back to what we say, it's not what something costs, it's what it's going to do for you. So when you think about your costs, you might quote somebody a cost of, let's say, £5,000. You personally might think that £5,000 is a huge amount of money. And you might be intimidated by quoting that amount of money because you feel that that's a lot to ask. However, to the client, 5 grand could be a drop in the bucket. It could be nothing. It could be a bit of contingency bunts that they've got knocking around, and they're more than happy to do it. So don't put your own personal beliefs about money onto the costs that you're quoting to a client. If you think about the luxury market exists because we believe that the price they're quoting is worth paying. I love shoes. I have a problem with shoes. I genuinely do have a problem with shoes. And I spend a lot of money on shoes because I've got this crazy disease. But I know that I can go and get a pair of shoes from somewhere else for a fraction of the price. But you know what? Nice shoes make me feel good. It's good. Ladies, am I right? Yeah. It's all about the shoes, right? Of course it is. Yeah. It is. I don't care. It is. But shoes are good. But when we think about the luxury market, if we spend a lot of money on a car, we spend a lot of money on a car because we believe it makes us feel good. Think about how Audi has taken off now because everyone wants Audi. Before it was a BMW. And we have these trends, don't we? Things become fashionable. It's worth the price we pay. Think about Apple products. Hugely expensive. We can get cheaper alternatives, but it's the way it makes us feel. So think about the value that you're offering and make sure that that value has meaning, and don't be frightened of quoting big. Here's another reason why you have to quote big. It's easier to go down than it is to go back up. It really, really is. So if you're going in and you're quoting and they come back and they're thinking, that's a bit out of our budget, that's a bit further away, if you've put packages together, you've got somewhere to negotiate and somewhere to work, it's easier to go down. However, remember as well that people don't necessarily buy things on price alone. If they're saying something is too expensive, then it could be that they're not seeing the value that you've put across. It's not necessarily that it is too expensive. So sometimes it's just a fake objection. It's never really just about money. It's usually something else. So think about what makes your price worth paying, and don't be frightened to quote big. Sending the proposal, getting it away, well, we want to launch it into space, into that business world, and we want to be able to do a few things. So when somebody asks for a proposal, golden rule, that proposal needs to be with them no later than 48 hours from request. Because otherwise that gap of time between the meeting and that proposal is allowing that client to go cold, and you're also giving a window of opportunity for your competitors to step in and get there first. So 48 hours from request. If that sounds like a bit of a stretch, if you're doing a lot of sales proposals, you should make sure you keep them all. Keep them on your system. I keep mine in 2 separate folders. One that says proposals that have worked, others that say proposals that haven't worked. That one's kind of empty. Now, he says, of course not. Anyway, and what you can do is when you look at the proposals that have worked, you can actually look at the language that all of those have in common, and then you can start to farm the stuff that's worked. And then it becomes quite easy then to put something together a bit quicker. Okay? So 48 hours from request. Make sure that when you put a proposal together, you will put it together and you save it as a PDF, preferably with all fonts embedded. Never, ever, ever send a proposal to a client in an Excel document because they hate it and it looks hideous. Never send it as a PowerPoint presentation because that's not a proposal. And never send it as a Word document. Because ultimately you do that, they can actually get into it a little bit and they can change things around if they want to, and it can change the formatting and corrupt. Always send it as a PDF and make sure the fonts are embedded. Okay, so a PDF looks great. Then the other rule is never put a proposal to a client inside the main body of an email. Because what you're then doing is you're just sending them a message. If you put it in the main body of an email, different email systems can change the formatting and corrupt it, and then suddenly all your quotes and everything looks too much. And people don't like scrolling down an email, they get bored. It's too much. So therefore it doesn't look very good and it doesn't represent you. So what I like to say to people is when you send a proposal, use the main body of the email as your compliment slip. In the old days, we used to put a compliment slip in saying, nice to meet you, hope you have a lovely time with your new dog, Rosie. And then, lovely to see you, proposal attached. And you can do that. Just keep that as the compliment slip. You can also put into that main body of the email what's in the proposal. Attached is the proposal. The proposal contains all of the information about the needs of your business, the way that we can help you, the costs that are required to do this, and I've even included a couple of testimonials from people for you. Feel free to contact them if you'd like to. I'll follow up in the next 14 days, or I'll follow up in the next 48 hours to make sure you've got it, and we'll go from there. Best regards or best wishes, Simon, whichever you want to do. And then what you want to do is attach that PDF to the email. Then you want to make the subject line work. The subject line, this is my favorite thing. Lisa, I love you because you keep doing this. You use this all the time. This is where in the subject line, you put these particular prefixes before the context. So if somebody has asked you for a proposal, put requested info at the beginning, colon, and then proposal from and the name of your business. Okay? If it's something where they need to do something and they've got to respond to you, put response required. If they've asked for a proposal or they've asked you for information and then they come back and ask you for something else, then put into it additional info. And if you're signing a contract where you need the contract signed, put in action required. What this does is it makes that client realize that there is something in there that they have been expecting and that they've actually got to do something with it. And it stops your particular proposal or piece of information reading as junk. Of course, I don't need to say, do I, that if you are going to send a proposal to someone and you haven't spoken to them, please don't put requested information because they'll come back and say, I never requested this, and they will block you. And that looks cheap. So one of the things I've found out, and IT people might be able to tell me, I don't know why, but if you put this particular prefix in capital letters with that after it, for some reason, it doesn't drop into spam. I don't know why. But it does that. But then when you put the context after it, don't write the word context, obviously. Just put whatever that context is. You just put that in normal font. But that prefix, that way, works very, very well. Exactly as that abbreviation. Otherwise, it takes up too much room, and then it makes the subject line too long. But that abbreviation works well because, we know that that's the word requested. We can see that. We can see that's response. That's additional. That's action. So feel free to do that. Okay, works really, really well, and it accelerates that sales process and stops them saying, I didn't receive it. Okay? Never forget your P's and Q's. Always, always put some passion into the main body of the email, put some passion into the way you communicate, and never forget to say the words, thank you for considering me for this piece of work. It goes an awful long way. Make sure you use words in the main body that say things like, I am genuinely excited at the prospect of working with you. I hope you find this proposal exciting and I hope that we can talk further and I really look forward to potentially, probably, possibly working with you. Use that language because there are some people who have the perfect solution and yet some clients will say, I'm not going to go with you, and they'll give you a reason as to why. But when you really uncover the reason why, it's because you didn't want it enough. And some clients want you to earn their money. And you've got to show a bit of passion. And if you're the type of person who, like me, I can get very excited about things, but if you can inject that passion in, it makes people believe that you genuinely want that business and that you genuinely want to work with them. And isn't that a great feeling when you get an email from a client that says, we've seen your proposal, we've seen your outline, it's great to work with you, should we go ahead? And you think, come on, let's have some of that. Yeah, you see, you politely laugh right now, but I know that when you get that through in your office, you're going to, come on, yes, I'm a god. That's what you do. Please tell me you do that, don't you? I know you do, I know you do. We all get really excited. And that's what we have to do. But we've got to put that passion over there. Don't start taking it for granted or just putting meek and mild language in there. That's not going to work. They don't want that. They want a partner, a collaborator, someone that's worthy of their money. So, when you send it, that's great. And then let's just follow up. Let's just follow up with our proposal. So it keeps that staircase moving. It keeps the journey moving all the way down. And the 48-hour rule kicks in again. So the proposal needs to go to the client 48 hours from request. If you are going to follow up with the proposal, then say that you will follow up within 10, 14 days, no more than that. But you might just want to send a contact in some way 48 hours after saying, I hope you've received the proposal okay. If you have any initial questions or initial thoughts, then please let me know. And you can either do that by phone or you can do that by email. It's entirely up to you, but it just keeps the contact going. If we think about people in recruitment, when we recruit people for a new job, we love it if they get in touch with us between interviews. So we do the CV thing, we get them for interview, and then we think, well, they're going to wait then to see whether they've been successful or whether they are going to get a second interview. And we love it when candidates get in touch with us in between that, because it shows that they're really interested and they want your job, not just a job. It's the same here. It shows the client that you just don't want any bit of business, you want their business. And that shows really good willing. It's not pesty, it's not being pests, it's being persistent, and it's keeping you in their mind. Get in contact as often as needed. Don't be frightened to keep in touch with people. Don't be frightened to do that. So once you get to that 14 days, after that, if they're going to start passing you off and then saying, we haven't made a decision yet, all of that stuff, don't be frightened to keep in touch, because it does take different lengths of time for different customers to actually come to a decision. There is a phenomenon which Alison Edgar wrote about recently, which is called ghosting. And ghosting is where a client gives you all the buying signals that says, yes, we want to go ahead. You then send the information and then you can't get hold of them. They don't answer their calls, they never come back. It's like, what have I done wrong? What's going on? But you've got to keep going, because you have to realize that buying from you is not their number one priority. They have got their day job to do, so there could be a good reason behind it. So you have to be thinking about that. So keep going as often as needed and be persistent. Don't be a pest, just be persistent. Funnily enough, only 2% of sales calls are made on the first contact. And that's usually because the timing is right. Most sales calls are actually made around about the 10th to the 12th contact. So you have to keep going. And if you don't, unless they tell you we're not interested, you have to keep going. Ask the client, what are the next steps? Don't be frightened to do that. So what are the next things that we need to do to move this along? Ask them the question. They then tell you. Don't think that you have to bring everything to the party. The client has to bring something to you in order to make that relationship work. So ask them what the next steps are. Visit and present, that could be something that you have to do, and they may ask you to do that, in which case, if it's visit and present, then you definitely want to make sure you're going to craft a presentation, and if you're going to do that, it could be something like this, it could be a format of a presentation that you've got. Just to do a little bit of advertising for this time next year, because you know you're going to be here this time next year, we're going to be talking about presentation skills in the diary. All done. That's called the assumptive close. So, it's genuinely happening, guys. It really is. So, this is the dark side. This is the dark side. I want you to be aware that there are people out there who will waste your time. There are people out there. They will fob you off, and there will be people who will consume and hoover a huge amount of your time with no intention of purchasing. You have to be strong enough to sack them off and get rid of them. Don't be frightened to do that. I have a mechanism that I use, and that mechanism is if I get to a stage where I'm genuinely getting the feeling that this isn't going to happen, and I've been in touch up to 10, 12, 14 times, at 14th time, I send an email or I call the client. If I can't get hold of the client, then it's the email, and it will say in the email, I have been in touch with you a number of times. We've had a few kind of conversations where you've delayed. I'm getting the feeling at the moment that this maybe won't be moving forward. So what I'd like to do is just ask you, what would be the next steps if you are going to go forward? Or alternatively, I am very happy to close off your enquiry. That's the language you use. What that does is it will say to the client, so this is a salesperson who's actually happy to turn the business down. That's rare. And it gives them permission to actually say, no, we don't want to go ahead. And that makes the client feel very, very comfortable. The other thing that it can do is to accelerate that client where they think, oh my goodness, we actually have to move on this. And I've had instances where I've had a client that's come back and said, Simon, we're so sorry for the tardy responses. Yes, we do want to go ahead. Are you still available? Things have been chaos here. Let's make this happen. And so therefore, it's a very polite way of either closing off the inquiry, in which case you can think, I don't need to chase that and waste my time anymore, or it accelerates the process. It's very comfortable. It doesn't feel too pushy. But just say, to close off your inquiry is a lovely way of just saying, I am fed up with contacting you and you wasting my time. So, but it's just a nice way of doing it. You have to make sure as well, lastly, that you are closing all the way through it. Make sure that you are using all of your closing techniques to make sure that you are asking for the business, because after all, what makes a good salesperson is that they have the ability to close, and we have to be able to close the sale. So make sure that you're asking all those closing questions. So would you be happy to go ahead? Are you in a position to move forward? Does that sound like something you want to do? Shall I go ahead and open your file? All of those types of things. Make sure that you are closing the business. It's really quite simple, very straightforward, with some key little tips and techniques that you can put in there. So moving forward on things, I would like you to have a little look online at 9 o'clock, because you will see the blog with all the notes on putting a sales proposal together for you. If you go to the Serial Trainer 7 website, you will find that there is a drop-down section on sales, and there is a ton of sales training there for you if you would like it. And you can just download and use it on proposals, presentations, closing techniques, the whole lot, adding value. There's a blog as well called The Best of 2018, so you can have all of those as well. And there's another set of blogs called My Personal Confidence Mini-Series, which has had a massive amount of traction. If you're the type of person that likes to build a bit of your confidence in sales, you might like some of that. If you'd like to get in touch with me and ask any questions, and just assume the answer is yes, it's absolutely fine, and lots of people do after these talks. My email is there, and it's on the business cards there, and you are definitely going to have an amazing year, aren't you? Because we love to sell. Did we say we love to sell? Yes, we do. So Happy New Year, be successful, and I look forward to seeing you this time next year for presentation skills. Ta-da!